Okay, good morning, everyone. So today we will start the third module. Okay, so just remind you, so in the first module, we did a review of microeconomics. And then in the second module, so we learn how to measure our economy. So this include measuring the size of the economy, GDP, measuring the price of our economy, price index. And then we also learn how to measuring the labor market, like unemployment rate, labor force participation, so on and so forth. Okay. Now in the third module, so we start to look at the macroeconomic relations. So this module, the main point of this module is just make sense of the number we came up in the second module, like say for example. So why GDP is what we observe, and why GDP fluctuates, why unemployment rate increase during recession. Okay, so this is in the third module. So the third module is going to naturally lead to the last module. And in the last module, we are going to study so what the role the government can play when the economy is fluctuating. All right. So now in this module, we start with some basic macroeconomic relations. Okay. And then, so the key thing we are going to start with is the equation we learned in the second module, which states y equal to c plus I plus g plus nx. Okay. So this is coming from the expenditure approach. So this expenditure approach says, so the total GDP can be measured by looking at all spending, right? And there are a couple of things I want to highlight. Number one, so this is from demand side. Okay, actually, in this chapter and then the following chapter, we will focus on demand side, and then later we will bring the discussion of supply side. Okay, what is demand side essentially is how much we spend. Right. So in terms of the demand side, now let's look at this equation. So there are four items. Okay. At the starting point, so we are going to ignore net export. As a matter of fact, if we look at US economy, so net export is pretty small and negative, right? So like less than, the absolute value is less than 10%. And the government spending, so we are going to wait to the final, the last module. Okay, so when we talk about government policy, for now we are going to focus on the first two. Okay, and actually, so C for the U.S. economy, this accounts to around 70% of total GDP. So you can see it is quite important. And I, which stands for investment spending, so it is also important. So in terms of absolute magnitude, it may not comparable to consumption, but it is important in the following two sense. First, so the investment is going to affect our future capital stock. Okay, so that's going to affect our economic growth. And the secondly, so investment can fluctuate quite significantly, or it fluctuates more volatile compared to consumption. So that is going to have dramatic impact on our economy. Okay, so hence we start with these two. And then in this chapter, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you how consumption is going to fluctuate or is going to vary with your income. And similarly, so how investment is going to vary with your income. Or in other words, so we are going to look at C as a function of Y and I as a function of Y. Okay, and then here, so we look at the issue from demand side. This is number one. And then number two, so for now, we just take the income as given. Okay, and then later, so we are going to see, So there is some interesting economic mechanism to determine level of income. Right? For now, we just take income as given, just see so how your consumption and the investment spending will adjust with your income, and more specifically is disposable income. And so throughout this chapter, so we are going to look at a very important concept, which is multiplier. All right. Okay. So before I show you the slides, maybe just show you the article. So you're going to see from today's newspaper, say for example, Wall Street Journal, right? So like today, so the main, let me see. So where's the article? Yeah. Okay. Here. Right. So you probably heard from the news, there's another round of stimulus coming, right? And the total size of this stimulus is 1.9 trillion, right? And among this 1.9 trillion, you can look at this picture. So more than 4 billion will go to households, all right? And then there are two questions. Question number one, why the government want to do that? And the question number two, so if the government send us 400 billions of check, what is going to be the impact on our economy, and particularly on the demand side, right? So certainly, so the answer to the second question, which is how this stimulus check will affect our economy. So will help us understand the first question, why the government want to initiate this massive stimulus bill, okay, which is 1.9 trillion, is a little bit close to 10% of our total GDP, right? Okay, so now just keep these two questions in mind. So let's just back to our slides. Okay. So first, multiplier. Right. So in our economy, households and firms, they are not isolated. So they are mutually independent. Just remind yourself the circular flow diagram we studied when we look at GDP, right? So the households and firms, they interact in two markets. One is goods and service. The other is factor market, right? So they are so dependent around each other, and hence, so if households change their behavior or the households change their spending, so that's going to have a multiplier effect, or there's a chain effect on our economy in terms of total spending. On the other hand, if the business increase their investment spending, so that's going to have a chain effect on our economy. Okay, so like here, so we may want to look at example. If construction spending rise by 100 billion, how much does this affect the economy? Okay, and given we are in a COVID pandemic or COVID crisis, okay, so I may want to change this slightly. So if the government sent us $100 billion of check, okay, and how much does this government spending or the government check will affect the economy? Okay, let's just modify the question slightly, but the answer is going to be similar. Okay, to answer that question, so we need have a understanding of economic concept, which is marginal propensity to consumer, okay, or short for MPC. So MPC is a measure of your propensity, of your desire to spend if you have increasing disposable income, right? So in the middle, so we have the definition of MPC. MCPC equal to delta stands for change in consumer spending divided by change in disposable income. For example, if you receive a $10 of extra income, and this is disposable. By the way, so here disposable means this after tax plus transfer. Or in other words, disposable means this is amount at your full disposal. So you can do whatever you want with this $10. Okay. So if with this $10, the extra disposable income, so you're going to spend $6. And then, so we can calculate your MPC equal to 0.6. It's given by here, right? So this means for each $1 extra income you have, you are going to spend 60 cents, or you're going to spend 60%. Okay, so this is MPC. And what about the rest? The rest of the money will go to saving, because whatever you are not consumed must go to saving. Whatever you not save must go to consumption, right? And hence, so we are going to have MPS, and finally, so we are going to have MPS equal to 1 minus MPC. So understand that. So let's just write your disposable income, change in disposable income, okay? And it must equal to change in consumption plus change in saving, right? Because for each dollar you have, you either consume or you save, right? And some students may say, oh, so what about I just lost my cash, I lost my wallet? So that you can categorize as consumption. And then the other student may ask, okay, so what happened if I donate my money? So that's also considered as consumption, right? And then somebody else says, okay, so if I use this money to buy stock, what does that mean? So that goes to saving. And finally, one student says, okay, so I have this income, and then so I use some of the money to pay off my debt. That either is a student loan or it's the loan I took to finance my car or a house. So that's also you consider as saving, right? Now, if you divide both sides by delta y, what we have? Left hand side equal to 1. Right hand side, so this MPC, this is MPS. Hence, we have 1 equal to MPC plus MPS. And that just gives you MPS equal to 1 minus MPC. Okay, so now with this as a preparation, now we can answer the question. Okay, again, so we just change this slightly. So if the government sent us a total $1 billion of stimulus check, okay, and what would be the impact on our aggregate economy? And here, so we are going to exclusively look at impact on aggregate spending. All right. So then, so what happens? So this $100 billion goes to the hand of households. So now households' disposable income is called Y is going to increase by exactly 100 billion. Okay. And then what are you going to do with this money? We just learned MPC or MPS, right? And then, so you're going to spend a fraction. So that just means with this additional income, so you're going to spend a fraction, which is MPC times 100 billion, right? Because for each dollar you have, you're going to spend a fraction. And this fraction is given by marginal propensity to consume. All right. Okay, let's say for example, if the MPC is 0.6, that means immediately, so the spending, the aggregate expenditure will increase by 60 billion. Now, what next? So actually the story won't stop here. And we have next step. this 60 billion will become somebody else's income, depending on how you spend this 60 billion, right? So some may just buy some durables, like a car, a computer, or a house. Somebody else may increase their spending in non-durables, like travel, like dining, like grocery, or tuition, right? So whatever you spend, so this 60 billion becomes income for somebody, whoever provide goods and service to you. And then for those who receive these 60 billions from you, from me, from whoever received the original 100 billions of stimulus check. And then, so these people have additional 60 billion income. What they're going to do? So again, so this MPC is going to play a role, right? And then, so those who provide goods and service to us, they are going to spend MPC times 60, right? And actually, so this is going to keep moving, right? And why this keep moving is because whenever I spend, or whenever someone in the economy spend, the money you, me, or someone spend will become somebody else's income. And then with additional income, whether it's me, you, or somebody else in the economy, so they're going to spend, and then they'll spend based on MPC. Okay, so this process will keep moving. And then finally, what would be the impact of this initial stimulus check on our economy? So we need add everything together. So it means, so we need add MPC times 100. So this initial spending plus MPC times, actually here, this should be MPC times 100. Right? Because this 60 comes from MPC times 100. And plus MPC times MPC times MPC times 100, so on and so forth. And then the total impact on our aggregate spending will be the summation of this sequence. And you should realize that this sequence will keep moving. All right. Now, look at the example in this slide. So in this slide, it's slightly different, right? Because the initial 100 billion is not a check, it's just investment spending, either initiated by the government or initiated by business. So that means we must add the original 100 into the discussion, right? But the same spirit is the same. The spirit is, or the key message is, so $1 income, you're going to spend a fraction. But once you start to spend, that's going to increase income of somebody else. And then somebody else will spend. So you can see, so this process will keep moving. Okay, so that's a key message. Now let's just finish the discussion. Okay, the total increase in real GDP actually is coming from aggregate expenditure equal to this one refers to the initial 100 billion. This MPC refers to, so this 100 billion becomes somebody else's income, and then so somebody who received 100 billion will spend a fraction. And then so the following items, it just follow the idea I just mentioned. So whatever I spend becomes somebody else's income, and somebody else with income they're going to spend, and then somebody else spend becomes somebody else income, and so on and so forth. We add everything together, and then so that's going to give you the total increase in our real GDP measured by spending, right? And then this summation equal to here. So, or in other words, the sum inside this parentheses equal to the first term, right? Now, so this is a practice question for you to work out, right? So I leave that for you as a homework, okay? So you need write down the step as I just explained in the previous slide, right? Just imagine if there's increase in investment spending by $200, okay? So you just trace out the total impact on our real economy, right? And then so find out the aggregate, the increase in aggregate expenditure, okay? And by the way, here we assume there's no government, no tax, no transfer, and furthermore, aggregate price level are fixed and interest rate are fixed. Okay, so those things are very important as they are going to affect the net impact of an increase in expenditure. Now, say for example, so if everyone start to spend, the price level will increase. Like this is what happening right now, right? So Saturday or Sunday, send and deposit the stimulus bill, and then the market is expecting, so people have more money, so they're going to spend, and then inflation will go up because there are more money is going after the goods and service we produce, right? And the inflation will go up. So the inflation go up, so that just naturally makes the long-term government bond less attractive. So that's why we observe in the market, so the treasury bill, which is government bond, their price decline. Okay, and the price decline, it just the other way to understand that is the interest rate went up. So the interest rate went up, so that explains why those growth stocks like Tesla, so their price went down. Right? Okay. Now, so this is the answer for the previous slides or the discussion question. Okay, so I encourage you to work it out yourself, and then just compare with what I explained in these slides. Okay. Now, given this MPC, so we can look at or define the multiplier. Okay. So what is multiplier? Essentially is the total change of our aggregate expenditure or real GDP, because you can look at GDP by looking at aggregate expenditure, right? So the multiplier, which is measuring if there's $1 increase in spending, how much will our aggregate expenditure increase, right? So this 1/1 minus MPC, that just directly follow what we discussed in previous slides. Okay, so this is multiplier. Now let's look at a practice question. Holding everything else constant in the economy, the larger the MPC, how would that affect multiplier? To answer that, so we need to write down two equations. One is the multiplier, 1/1 minus MPC. Another equation is 1 equal to MPC plus MPS, right? So the multiplier is going to increase with MPC, right? Look at this equation, because higher MPC and then the smaller this term, meaning the larger this entire term. Now, MPS increase means MPC decrease. MPC decrease, and then this term increase, and then the entire multiplier decrease. Right? So the answer is A. But intuitively, the larger the MPS, the weaker the incentive people to spend. And then the net impact on our economy from an increase in original spending will be smaller, right? And certainly the smaller the multiplier. Okay. Now we are ready to look at consumer spending, or we are ready to look at how consumer spending is going to change with disposable income. Okay, so let's just take a few minutes break and then we continue our discussion here.